Namaste and welcome to Sugarcane AI's learning series. My name is Nikhilesh and I'm a founder of an edtech platform called AIML etc. Basically, we teach artificial intelligence and large language models in a very simple language. So in the previous video, we started learning about the prompt, and in this video, we'll continue doing that. In this video, we'll cover how to use tonality in prompts, what is in context learning, what are three different kinds of in context learning, and what is chain of thoughts prompting. So when we want ChatGPT to answer in certain tone, because tone matters. So for example, if you want a formal tone or a humorous tone, you can actually specify that particular tone to ChatGPT. Let's see this as example. So when you don't specify a tone, you can write a prompt like write a short letter under 100 words to an employee who has been sloppy with work lately. Okay, so ChatGPT has somehow assumed that the tone, and it has generated a certain answer for you. Now, what if you want to add some tone? Let's say you want ChatGPT to generate the answer in a formal and stern tone. So then you can mention that. Now ChatGPT doesn't assume, and then it can give you the answer in the tone which you want. So for example, you can also specify the tone as caring and supporting tone. And you can also specify tone as humorous. So now ChatGPT will follow this instruction and will provide you the answer which you desire. Now let's learn some advanced prompting techniques, which is in context learning and chain of thought prompting. So let's understand this. So usually what we do zero shot inference, as in we ask the model to do something, and model, based on its learning, does the same thing. So for example, if you ask the model to classify this review, and the review is I loved this movie, and you asked what is the sentiment, so model, based on its knowledge, can classify that the sentiment is positive. So this is known as zero shot inference, because you haven't given any example to ChatGPT. It has answered based on its own knowledge. Now, what is the problem with this type of approach with zero shot inference? There could be a case that model doesn't understand this, or doesn't have this prior knowledge, or doesn't understand your prompt. In this case, if you ask the model, classify this review, I love this DVD, and the sentiment, but somehow it didn't understand the context and it gave you the random stuff. So how to prevent this situation? What you can do is you can specify one example in your prompt. So what you can do, you can say that classify this review, I loved this movie, the sentiment is positive. Now classify this review, that I don't like this chair, and what would be the sentiment. Now ChatGPT understands what exactly you are trying to ask, and then based on this example, then it could predict, or it can tell you that the sentiment is negative. So now you can also add multiple examples so that ChatGPT understand your prompt or your questions or your intentions better. So, and this is known as few shot inference. So in few shot inference, you provide multiple examples. For example, classify this review, I love this DVD, the sentiment here is positive. Now classify this review, I don't like this chair, the sentiment is negative. Now you now you are asking ChatGPT to classify this review. This is not great, and you are asking the sentiment. Now ChatGPT can understand, and now it can give you the answer that it's negative. However, there is a limitation of in context learning as well, because there is a limit of text that you can write in a context window. So if your examples are more, or if they are long, then you might not able to write all that content in the context window, and that's the reason there is a limitation of this in context learning. So you can see that in context learning may not work for smaller models as well, and examples take up space in the context window, and we have a word limit for the context window. Now let's understand chain of thought prompting. Why we need chain of thought prompting? Because sometimes model does not able to work on arithmetic and reasoning tasks. Let's understand this. So now consider this prompt that Roger has 5 tennis balls. He buys 2 more cans of tennis balls. Each can has 3 tennis balls. So he bought basically 6 more. Now how many tennis balls does he have now? So the answer here is 11. This is a very straightforward, very simple calculation for us. Now you're asking, the cafeteria had 23 apples. If they used 20 to make lunch and bought 6 more, how many apples do they have? So they had 23, they used 20, that means now they are left with 3, and then they bought 6 more. So the answer should be 9. But if you see, the model or the chat GPT has answered this thing incorrectly. The answer which it gave is 27. Why? Because somehow model did not understand the question, and it did not follow how to basically calculate it. So how did we do it? We basically broke the problem into multiple steps. We specified that, okay, initially there were 23 apples. They used 20, so now we got 3, and then we bought 6, so now the answer is 9. So it's a multi-step process. If we want the model to understand and do a multi-step calculation, then simply writing the answer is 11 will not help. We need to break the process or break the calculation in steps, and and then only model will be able to answer such questions. Let's understand this. So the solution is think like a human. So if we have to give, or if we want model to understand this problem, instead of just writing the problem and answer as 11, we need to break this thing into multiple steps. So say start. So Roger started with 5 balls. Step 1, 2 cans of 3 tennis balls, which is now 6 tennis balls. So step 2 is 5 plus 6 equals to 11. So the answer is 11. Now these are known as reasoning steps, and the way you write is known as chain of thought. So basically how you are thinking, how you are approaching the problem. The same way, if you provide the example to ChatGPT, ChatGPT will also then approach the problem in the similar way. Now let's understand this. So now if you give Roger has, so we give the same problem, but here then now we specify steps. Roger started with 5 balls, 2 cans of 3 tennis balls, which is 6, and the answer, then 5 plus 6 is equals to 11. So the answer is 11. And now if you give the same problem which we gave earlier, now you can see model has actually started doing the same thing. So now what it has done, it has answered in a way, in steps. So the first step was the cafeteria had 23 apples originally. They used 20 to make lunch, so they had 23 minus 23 left, and then they bought 6 more, so now they have 3 plus 6, so the answer is 9. So that's how, if you give step by step reasoning, if you give the way you are thinking, if you provide your chain of thought, model will also understand and it will also follow the same method, and then it will provide you the right answer. So now if you can see, if you give another prompt, let's understand with another example. Yes or no, would a pear sink in water? So now if you see that the density of a pear is about this much, which is less than the water, thus a pear would float. So the answer is no. So now it's not that you have just given the answer is no, no pear would not float. In fact, you have given the reasoning, right? This is why pear will not float, or would pear sink in the water. This is how you think, and this is the logic behind it. Once you give the logic, model will also apply the same logic. So now if you give another question, yes or no, would a gold ring sink to the bottom of a swimming pool? Now it will apply the same logic. Now it will think that density of the gold is this much, which is much greater than the density of water. Therefore, a gold ring would sink to the bottom of a swimming pool. So the answer is yes. So this is known as chain of thought prompting, where you actually give the reason, the logic, your actual thought process in step-by-step manner. So in this video, we learned about in-context learning, chain of thought prompting, and tonality. The basic principles of prompting are that we need to write clear and specific instructions. That's one. We learned this thing in last video as well. And principle 2 is give the model time to think. By what we mean by give the model time to think is basically when we divide the problem into multiple steps. So then it gets the time which it requires to basically solve the problems. With steps, it understands the problem and the approach to the problem, and that's how then it tries to solve the problem. So we come to end of this video. Thanks for watching it. We'll be discussing prompt engineering in detail in the next videos. So make sure you watch other videos as well. Thank you. Thanks for watching this.